My pivot point came one night shortly after returning home. We were all in the kitchen, and the family was all there, and I had an attack, and I was down between the sink and the stove on the ground. And my whole family was around me, and my sweet wife was on the floor with me, and I saw the faces of my children. And the idea that I would someday not remember them, nor would I remember my soon-to-be-born grandchild, hit me like a bag of bricks. And we looked at each other, and I asked, what am I doing? Maybe we should all just move up into the mountains and spend time together.
Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green, and you're tuning into AMTV, Alternative Media Television. Popular radio host and media personality Glenn Beck gives a very tearful presentation, really goes on a tirade last night during yesterday's show on Monday, revealing and explaining to his audience, he says for the first time, although he's explained this before and surmised that he was being poisoned jokingly by George Soros, but that doctors, some of the best and most intelligent and skilled in the world, are unable to identify what's going on in Glenn Beck's brain. He says that he's afflicted by a strange, mysterious, and again, unidentified, almost like a UFO or something, neurological disease in his brain, where he says he hasn't slept more than 2, 3, 4 hours in some odd years, that his brain was functioning in the lowest percentile, that he's undergoing these NASA spacesuit tests at some kind of holistic facility in Dallas. That's why his family has moved there, and that he wants to be honest with his audience and explain why he really just hasn't been in it over the past few years and past couple of months since Fox. Now again, in no way is this video meant to detract from Glenn Beck, him getting the treatment that he needs. Again, I hope and pray that he gets back to full health. But something about this presentation yesterday didn't make a lot of sense to me, honestly didn't feel right, and was very, very peculiar. His wife was sitting right next to him, and she was totally and utterly emotionless the whole time. It's like she didn't have a feeling at all. As Glenn Beck was breaking down and crying, as is kind of the likability. I think it's one of the reasons people like him so much is his sensitivity. Breaking down in front of the camera, explaining how doctors said that he might only have 5 to 10 years before he'll no longer recognize the faces of his children, his family he'll be unable to remember key facts, that he will be unable to do live shows, that his other radio personalities have been really picking up for him over the past few years and jumping in when he forgets things, etc., etc. But what was really bizarre about this whole experience, and I encourage you to watch this video, is at one point, while his wife sits emotionless next to him, like a rock, like a statue, that maybe that's just who she is and she doesn't like to be on camera, Glenn is breaking down in tears and they're coming down his face. And again, I think that's part of the likability of Glenn Beck. But what's really bizarre to me is that while he's going through this tirade, they go to a different camera angle for a split second or two, and you actually notice Glenn Beck is reading a teleprompter word for word. I mean, seriously, this guy is that good. He's such a fantastic actor. He can read a teleprompter when he's having a heart-to-heart conversation. Now again, I'm not saying that you never ever read a teleprompter. From time to time, if I'm doing a mini documentary and my words have to be carefully chosen, I will read a teleprompter. But I'm not reading a teleprompter right now. I'm having an honest-to-God conversation with you, my audience, which is supposedly what Glenn was doing. And something as heartfelt and traumatic as a mysterious disease that again can't be pinpointed, that in and of itself is a mystery, is reading a teleprompter word for word, as his wife sitting next to him almost appears like she's a paid actor. She's either not in love with the guy, doesn't like the guy, hates the guy, can't stand to be sitting next to him, or Glenn Beck is lying and she knows it, and that's why she looks like a piece of driftwood or a rock sitting next to him. Again, in no way in this video am I trying to detract from Glenn's health or from him getting the treatment that he needs, etc., but I couldn't help but think what the ulterior motives could be for Glenn Beck. Why would he lie? I mean, let's just think outside of the box, creatively for a moment, like Glenn Beck does oftentimes. You know, Glenn Beck had signed a $50 million contract, a radio deal. He's estimated to have made over $100 million last year, more than Oprah Winfrey, and he is bounded by these contractual agreements. You know, I thought to myself, maybe Glenn Beck is just trying to retire. Maybe he's trying to move to the mountains, like he said that he wanted to. Maybe he's just trying to disengage from the very demanding lifestyle that makes up the life of a media personality today. But then I was thinking too, you know, there's been a real sentiment and emotion change, an emotional transition in Glenn Beck in recent months over the past year. You know, he's preached a lot about 1776 and revolution and freedom and all these great things, these constitutional principles that founded our country. But the minute we've actually seen that come to roost, namely with the Cliven Bundy standoff, he turns the other cheek. And suddenly he's preaching peace, love, harmony. It's all about, you know, what would you do if this was your last moment and minute alive with your family? If this was your last evening, what would you do? And he's preaching this big, peaceful, almost Mahatma Gandhi-esque approach to the revolution and to the new world. And again, nobody is promoting violence. I certainly don't promote violence, but it's almost like George Soros or the cartel or the New World Order or maybe the CIA is in his ear and is telling him, you know, Glenn, this is getting a little bit out of control. I think we need to calm the masses down because we actually are about to have a revolution here in the United States. And again, I've noticed a distinct character shift in Glenn Beck over the past few months, over the past few years. And honestly, what I saw last night, and many of you also saw, was completely and utterly bizarre. Again, it's almost like he made up the disease. It doesn't even have a name. It can't even be scientifically identified. It's just, well, his brain is all off over the place, needs to be re-engineered and rewired. You know, I think somebody's in his ear. I think that this is a tactic. I'm not sure if this is like a psychopathic, egotistical attempt to manipulate his audience, or he's somehow a CIA frontman or a plant or a shill. And again, I'm not trying to detract from Glenn Beck. I actually like the guy. There's a lot of stuff that he does I like. There's a lot of stuff I disagree with. But I always tell you to think outside the box, folks. Is Glenn Beck telling the truth? Is he being 100% honest and transparent with his audience? Does he have a real affliction? Or is there something more behind this? Because again, to me personally, and probably many of you out there, it didn't feel right, it didn't smell right, and it just was completely bizarre. I'm Christopher Green. Get it out everywhere, make it viral, hard-hitting it in your face, and click the link below to support our sponsor.